Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, brought to you by the Better Business Bureau and Century Solutions Group, Inc. There are always IT-related challenges that businesses have to address, right? Our guest today is Paul Szeto, Marketing Manager with Century Solutions Group, and he's going to teach us what businesses can do to resolve IT issues. Answering these challenges can be the difference between success and failure. Today, we'll look at the top 3 IT challenges facing businesses in 2023. We'll discuss how to meet those challenges and how BBB can support you in those efforts. We all know that trust and digital security are more important now than they ever have been, and BBB wants to provide our accredited businesses with the best practices and the most up-to-date information to keep you safe and secure online. Now I'll turn it over to our guest, Paul.
Thank you, Kimber, and good morning, everybody. As Kimber said, I'm with Century Solutions Group. I'm the marketing manager, and we want to thank the Better Business Bureau for having us present this presentation. And just let everyone know, we are actually a partner with the Better Business Bureau. We actually handle their IT support, and they have been a valued and trusted client for several years. So we are happy to be sharing this information with you all. I titled today's presentation, The Top IT-Related Challenges for Small Businesses in 2023, keeping in mind that these challenges and possible solutions are really applicable across the board. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware of that. Let me go to first the agenda. First thing we're going to do is cover some facts and figures that you may find interesting. We're going to talk about the cybersecurity landscape, and then we're going to talk about social engineering, which is one of the issues that we're going to be discussing, and some issues around social engineering, types of social engineering, phishing, smishing, how to reduce your risk. We're going to talk about malware, and then ransomware, which is a type of malware, how to reduce your risk. And we're also going to talk about supply chain attacks, risk reduction related to supply chain attacks, and then wrap it up with how the Better Business Bureau can help. Did you know that 61% of small businesses were the target of a cyber attack in 2021? And then 40% of attacked small businesses lost critical data. 50% of small businesses that were successfully attacked took 24 hours to recover. And then 37% of companies hit by ransomware had fewer than 100 employees. I want to make sure everyone can still see my next slide. I'm going to talk about the cybersecurity landscape for a minute. Cyber attacks are increasing in both frequency and cost, as they have for many years. According to Forbes, cyber attacks in the first half of 2022 rose by 42% when compared to the same time period the year before. Today, we're going to talk about a few specific examples that may impact you directly and hopefully provide some practical solutions to meet these challenges. Now, the first area we want to talk about is social engineering. Social engineering is the art of manipulating, influencing, or deceiving you in order to gain control over your computer system. Now, you see the term social. That's what it really means. It's not necessarily a technical attack, a system attack. It really relies on the victim's curiosity, perhaps their fear, their interest in a subject. And so it really preys on and looks at someone's emotions to get them to take an action. Now, the first type of social engineering attack, which is really the most common, is called phishing. This is the process of using email to acquire sensitive information, such as usernames, passwords, credit card details. This is something I think we've all have received. And really, like I was saying before, this is the most common attack, what we call attack vector. Phishing accounts for 90% of all attacks, and has actually grown 65% over the last year. And hopefully y'all can see this. This is an example of a phishing attack. This is actually a phishing attack I received to my work email here at Century Solutions. It actually said the email was from our IT department that actually talked about a phishing test, and it asked me to click on a link or to open an attachment. This is an easy one for me because I know the individual who would send this type of email and information, so I knew right away it was patently false. I think it's important for your users to really stop when they see these type of emails. If something looks out of place, or as they use the term fishy, definitely contact your IT person or your IT department. The next example of social engineering, which is phishing related, it's called smishing. Smishing, as you can imagine, it's a form of phishing that uses cell phones as the attack platform. And I'll show you an example. This is one actually I received again. This is one from Netflix. Netflix was saying my account had been suspended and I needed to click on a link to provide them information and to get my account up and running again. Now, for me, this is a dead giveaway. I don't have a Netflix account, and so this was pretty easy for me to just ignore and to not even acknowledge it, not even click on the links or anything like that. But this is, again, another attack vector. It's a type of social engineering, and to be more exact, a type of phishing. Now, I want to talk about the sort of the top phishing subject lines that people clicked in some of our research. Now, we work with a company called KnowBe4. They're a security training company and a partner of ours. They run tests on companies' employees to help determine vulnerabilities and areas where they can improve. According to them, here are the top subject lines that people clicked on when they sent out these tests. So you can see the first one is Google. They get an email saying, hey, we're from Google. Your name appears in this document. Please click here to check it out. And then you can see the next two are HR related. Something about the vacation policy, as well as dress code policies. And then a real common one is a password check required. And so you have to check your password. And again, another HR related email saying your performance evaluation is due. Now, I want to talk about phishing risk reduction. Biggest thing that we can do to reduce your risk, and I want to make sure that I'm using the term risk reduction. I hate to use the word prevention because I don't believe anything is 100% bulletproof or foolproof. So the best we can do is reduce our risk of being vulnerable to an attack. The most important thing we feel is education, and education to bring a culture of awareness. According to Verizon, in their 2022 data breach investigation report, they tell us that the human element still contributes to 82% of breaches. This basically could be an error, stolen credentials, again, something like phishing. People continue to play a really, really major part in these type of incidences. And I think the key is to say, at least from our company, we're not out to blame people, but we want to identify that people are the biggest asset when it comes to preventing cyber attacks, particularly like phishing, but they're also our greatest potential vulnerability. So our job and your job is to really identify where those vulnerabilities are. And again, we also recommend to test your organization at least once a year, at least to get a baseline of where you are, how vulnerable you are. And the next thing, and again, this is from our partner Know Before, they use the term stop, look, and think. So if you see an email that perhaps is suspicious, you say stop. That means you resist immediate action. You don't click on the link right away. You don't click on the email right away, or the link in the email or the attachment. And the next is look. You check for anything unusual in the message. And then lastly, you think. Again, if something seems, to use the term fishy, you stop again and you report it to your IT department, or at best, don't do anything with the email. Now, going back to what our partner Know Before has done with training, I want to share with you the positive training impacts. This is Know Before's data across all of their customers and basically a kind of an aggregate of the training impacts. When they started training, what they call phishing training at their organizations, they found out that 32% of people tested clicked on a phishing email. And then 1 year later, through several iterations of training, that what I call phishing prone dropped down to 5%. So the bottom line is training does work, but it's something that you have to develop a culture of security awareness and a culture of training if possible. So after social engineering and phishing and smishing, our next issue that we see as important for us to deal with is malware. Malware is short for malicious software. It's a file or code that infects, explores, or steals or conducts virtually any behavior an attacker wants. Now, for small businesses, these attacks are particularly damaging because they can cripple devices, which can require expensive repairs or significant downtime. And again, why small businesses are more susceptible to this is many small businesses allow their employees to use their own devices, to use any device instead of a company type of device. This helps save time and cost, but it makes you more vulnerable. Now I want to talk about malware entry points. Basically, any device that connects into your network, whether it be a phone, a laptop, a desktop, a watch, anything that connects into your network is considered a possible entry point for malware. And something that y'all might remember a few years ago, it used to be USB drives. One example I recently read about was people used to, if you went to conferences, people used to leave USBs as a giveaway. They would put their company information on USBs and give that to conference attendees. That saved time instead of printing paper and such. And it was very techy when you think about it. The problem was what we were finding out and what was happening is that, and I'll use the term bad actors, would put malware on these USB drives, and they would distribute the USB drives at some of these conferences. And so someone unsuspectingly would take that USB drive that had the malware and basically stick it into their computer, and thus eventually they'd be infected. And so even USBs are a potential entry point for malware. I want to show an example of a malware attack. Here, a hacker, they place a malicious file in front of the user. And as we previously discussed, usually coming through phishing, so through an email. So someone clicks on that link or attachment and basically triggers the malware, and they basically installs it right on your device. And then the malware installs on your computer, aiming to steal or compromise any sensitive information you may have. Now, our next type of malware, which is a little more insidious, well, really a lot more insidious, is ransomware. Ransomware is described as a vicious type of malware that, when installed on your device, it locks you out of your device and blocks access to files until sum of money or ransom is paid. And what we found is 71% of ransomware attacks attack small businesses. The average ransom is around $100,000. And so that's definitely something small businesses have to be mindful of. And here's an example of a ransomware attack, excuse me. You can see ransomware gets installed on your PC, and you get this sort of message that says you really can't do anything until you pay a sum. Most of them are asking for money via crypto, for example, like Bitcoin or something similar like that. Now I'm going to talk about how can you reduce the risk of malware. Well, but first you can see here in my slide, you can remove administrator access for all user accounts. In other words, make sure you don't give all of your users administrator access. That should be just limited to just a few people. And then the next thing is to use multi-factor authentication for all remote access and email. So anyone who is not on site, we suggest you use multi-factor authentication. Now what that is, and what we call MFA, it's a method that requires the user to provide two or more verification factors to gain access to a resource. So some of you might have already been experiencing this in either at your offices or at when you do personal business. You'll put your login information in, and then you'll get another, whether it's an email or a text, basically saying, here's a code, please enter this code. Please enter this code into your device. And so that's what MFA is. That's what multi-factor authentication is. And then next is we suggest implementing application zero trust. You only allow authorized applications into your network. We also recommend configuring high quality backup, restoring your software and your backup on a regular basis. Make sure you patch your software updates immediately. And also, where you can't use MFA, use strong passwords, strong or unique passwords where you can. Now, next thing I'm going to talk about are supply chain attacks. Now, supply chain attack is a type of, in this term, I'm going to call it a cyber attack that exploits the trusted relationship between a vendor and a client. For example, in 2013, Target got hacked, and basically the information for 100 million customers was exposed. And how Target got hacked is they had a relationship with an HVAC, I guess, air conditioner supplier partner. And that person, the hacker, basically attacked the HVAC vendor or the HVAC supplier, and through that they're able to come in and attack Target. And so anyone you do business with is potentially makes you vulnerable to supply chain attack. And again, just here's an example. Down here would be really you guys, the target organization, and then you're doing business here with a third-party vendor, and then on top is your supply chain attacker. The supply chain attacker basically gets backdoor access to your partner. And then once they have access to that partner, they're able to come in and target your organization. Now, it's important to know these type of attacks are now the fastest growing attack vector for most enterprises. Basically, 50 to 60% of all cyber attacks are being perpetrated by third parties, by these type of attacks. Now, again, how can you reduce your risk for supply chain attacks? Well, again, you could implement a zero trust architecture. Again, to reiterate, zero trust, basically, you take a security posture that assumes all network activity is malicious by default. You're not trusting anybody. And so you have zero trust for anybody, and that's your defense posture. We again recommending implementing multi-factor authentication with all your partners. Again, just to provide a little more security to people that get into your network. And lastly, there's something called shadow IT. Shadow IT refers to all IT devices that are not approved by an organization's security team. So we recommend recommending implementing strict rules, either prohibiting shadow IT or setting strict standards on who you'll let into your network if they're using unauthorized IT. Now, regarding all of this, we want to talk about how the Better Business Bureau can help. Now, we feel the BBB can help by continuing to do what they're doing today, providing educational opportunities to the community. And I also want to point out something that's really important regarding the BBB accreditation standards. When someone wants to become a BBB member, there is a standard, and it's actually number 7 on the standards list around safeguarding privacy. That means protecting your customers' data and also making sure that no one unauthorized gets access to that customer data. And so if you partner with other organizations, particularly in the Better Business Bureau, you can be assured that they are all part of a community that safeguards privacy and safeguards customer data, which is interesting because this week is actually data and customer privacy week. And so it's important to know that to partner with companies that safeguard your data, your customers' data. And so you can probably find more information about that online about Privacy Week. But I think that's important. And the BBB, again, it's important to know that one of their standards, one of their accreditation standards is safeguarding privacy. And so that's important. I'm going to move to this last slide here.
Yeah, Paul, it's Kimber. I actually did want to comment and ask a couple of questions. This is such great information. Thank you so much for providing it for us today. And when you were talking about the phishing examples and the smishing, and I think this is just a comment that, what you guys have taught us, what CSG has taught us at BBB, is so important that, to stop and see if it makes sense. Like, I've worked for other organizations before, and without that kind of cybersecurity training internally, and I think it just really makes a difference. It's a great service that you guys provide, because when you learn to look at like the email address that it's coming from, and I think you guys teach us too, like if it's an urgent message, that's usually a red flag that it's, like your Netflix account has been suspended, it's urgent. Right. It makes people click on it more. So thank you for, that information and for offering those services. And then when you said that, you were talking about 82% of human error in testing your organization. So is that organizational test, is that something that CSG provides? You can go in and do that with companies. That's my first question. And then the second question is once a year often enough?
Answer your second question first, probably not. It's really probably better to do quarterly. We reckon probably quarterly training. Now, again, the company I mentioned before, KnowBe4, they're actually a partner of ours. The training that we offer to our clients is set up by KnowBe4. And KnowBe4 is actually a cool company. They set up training for phishing, for malware, for ransomware, for all types. And so, yeah, that's the company that we do business with. But there's other companies that offer security training that will get in there, test your employees, establish a baseline. And again, it's not really, I want to make clear, it's not really to blame or to point out, hey, Kimber, you did this, so you're in trouble or whatever. It's really to kind of figure out where the vulnerabilities are. What subjects is everyone clicking on? Does a CEO, are they more susceptible to being phished than a customer service representative. I mean, so it's not necessarily to point out blame. It's really just see where your vulnerabilities are.
Yeah,
I'll
that
give you an
makes
example.
total sense.
I mean, I'll give you an example. One of our partners, some of the higher level folks wanted to skip over, and they actually had a real life. Real life got phished, and they were asked to provide new banking information. And it actually they clicked on it and they told their accounting people, yeah, go ahead and send them the banking information. And so the only reason why it was stopped was because the accounting person actually called the phone number that was provided, and it was actually a bad number. And so it ended up going nowhere. And so they actually said, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Let's go find what the correct number is. And basically the whole thing was stopped. And so the point is everyone could be susceptible. And again, that's when I talk about when that Verizon report talks about the human element. You can even set up all the training, all the firewalls, all the filters, but it takes one person to go, well, I'm going to go ahead and just click on this email anyways, because, banking information sounds important. That could prevent everything that you put in place.
Right. Yeah. And so to that point, would you say training staff is probably the most important thing a business can do to keep their business secure digitally?
Yeah, ideally, but I'm going to admit not everyone can afford training staff. I mean, not everyone from large scale businesses potentially can, but perhaps small businesses can. So the idea is to be aware of it, to seek out information, at a minimum, seek out information online. Make sure at a minimum you have the correct software installed, whether it's antivirus, filtering, malware protection, and the like. But again, it's creating a culture of awareness. Again, whether you have a staff to do training, but again, it's even below that, Kimber. It's creating a culture of awareness where everybody is responsible for your security and your cybersecurity, and everyone plays a part in preventing attack on your organization.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think you had mentioned to me before that you guys offer some kind of a survey or screening or something for businesses. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, we can. You can contact me. My email address, marketing@centurygroup.net, and you guys can send that link out or that email address out afterwards, and I'll put you in touch with someone, and they can do a screening to test your security vulnerabilities.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to do that for anybody.
And just one more comment from me, and then if anyone else wants to jump in there, that's great. The supply chain attacks you were talking about, wow, I just had not really heard anything about that. And, with all the supply chain issues that are going on right now, I hate hearing it, but again, like you said, a culture of awareness is something that's just critical.
Well, and again, that's a good point. I always thought of supply chain. I used to think of supply chain as someone driving a truck with the products that you're selling, and they take that truck, they deliver it to you, and you sell it to your customers. But in this sense, it's really anyone that you do business with that has access into your network, which basically is anybody. Everyone basically has access, to your network. Your accounting firm, people who do creative services for you. I mean, anyone that downloads information to you, anyone that has access to your network as part of your overall supply chain. And so I had to think of terms of, more larger than just what I call brick and mortar type supply chain. It's really anyone you do business with. And so, that Target one is a great example. And there's other examples of people getting into your network to someone, because again, like an HVAC contractor or another partner, they may not be as secure as I am or as you are. So right away, there's a vulnerability. And so, so that's definitely supply chain is something that you have to watch out for.
Yeah, as much as we promote, local business, doing business with local business, it's our world has expanded so much. And since the pandemic, it's just even more. So many people are, 100% digital, and we do business with people that we don't know very well. And, to your point about BBB standards, and, that's why we get so many people that do come to our website to check out a business, because they know that if a business, is accredited, they've agreed to uphold our standards of trust, which number 7 is one of them, about safeguarding privacy. But you just,
Right.
you can't be too safe.
Absolutely. And again, I think the folks that I work with, they always say you're always vulnerable. And I don't mean that in a bad way to scare folks, but nothing is 100%. The bad guys are always, they're always trying to get into your network. And so you just have to continue to be vigilant and assume you're going to be attacked. And the best thing is what can we do to lower the risk? We as a company never go out and say, I'm going to 100% protect you. It's just not possible. What can we do to reduce the risk? What can we do to reduce what we call attack space? And also on the back end, what can we do to respond to any type of attacks?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Paul, thank you so much for spending your time with us this morning and sharing your
You're welcome.
expertise. This is just huge, and I hope that we'll have the opportunity to do more of these with you. And it's such an evolving issue. I know Simone does a lot of reporting on scams, and it just sickens me that scammers, it's their job. They're out there. They figure out a new scam every time we turn around. And certainly, as you said, they're looking for vulnerabilities and ways to get past your barriers there. So thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome. You're welcome.
yeah, okay. Well, everybody, thanks for joining, and we appreciate it. And have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.